Welcome to Sudeep Audio's channel, sir.
Yes.
Um, you're such an experienced person in the music business and sound engineering for over how many 20 years, 25 years,
Few years. Let's say few years.
few years. Okay. So it'll be wonderful for you to share with the viewers about the importance of an engineer in song production, in terms of the, like we were talking about, a relationship that a sound engineer has with the music producer, and how integral a sound engineer is to a song, which not many people are aware of. What's your take on?
My take on it. Uh, I think if you look at historically, if you look at the music industry all over the world, or in, let's say, even in India for that matter, and you will find, if you dig deep into the background of it, you will find that a lot of records and music has come about where it has been a symbiotic relationship between the musicians, between the engineer, and between the record producer. So the engineer, actually, if you look at it, is part and parcel of the entire ensemble of the musicians and the music which is made. So when we say that this film or this music or this album has a particular sound, now I think that is where one is actually crediting in your mind subconsciously the engineer, because the sound, he's responsible and to a large extent for the sound which that artist or the band has, and one normally tends to ignore it and not really credit that person for it, but I think they are very integral to the whole job. So if I look at it today, and when we say the sound of A.R. Rahman, right from Roja, when he burst through with his song Chinna Chinna Yaasi and the other songs, I would say that H. Sridhar, who was his sound engineer for the last 18 years, they worked together, was as much responsible for that sound which A.R. Rahman brought out as much as A.R. Rahman himself. So that is where when you actually trace that history and you look at, or maybe when you hear all those albums one after the other, you will see that there is a thread, there's an organic integrity which is happening and which is flowing through the entire thing. And that has only come about because they've shared a relationship over a period of time. You might look at Ashok Shukla and R.D. Burman when they worked together on that, and I'm sure at Mehboob Studio with Lakshmikant Pyaralalji and everybody who worked at Mehboob Studio and had the engineer working with him. And later on, Benny's work with Shankar Ehsaan Loy. You can see that from Dil Chahta Hai. You will see this graph happening right up to Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. So there is an integrity, there's a thread flowing through that. My relationship with Vishal Bhardwaj from his Marches days right up to Makbul, there is a thread running through that as well. And of last 8 years, again, working with A.R. Rahman and working with Sridhar, trying to understand that relationship with A.R. Rahman and trying to still fit in those shoes myself, it's not an easy job. But yes, we are trying to do it. So Eric Pillai with Preetham, you will notice that there is a entire there is a thread running through it at all. So in my opinion, an engineer is as important as any other element in which goes to making of that sound and music. But it can only come about when a relationship develops over a period of time. It is very difficult to, because I think the engineer is actually, you have to get inside the head of the composer. What is the composer thinking? What does the composer want? How does he want to present his music or her music? So until I get there, it's going to be just pushing faders and trying to just do a mechanical technical job, which I don't think it is. I think engineering is a very creative job. People call it like it's a technical department, but in my opinion, I don't think so. I think it's a very creative department. We do know how to handle gadgets, yes, but at the same time, when I'm turning a knob, I'm not just turning a knob in the mathematical equation or a physics equation. I'm actually turning it because I like a particular sound or I don't like a particular sound. I need it to go somewhere creatively with it, sound wise. So that's why I'm actually twisting and turning those knobs, because in my creative headspace, I'm hearing that thing, or I'm not hearing it and I want it to go there. So we are not just technicians. We are, I think, largely creative people as well. And I think it's a misnomer to call us just technicians. So we are as much part of the creative process of making music as much as anybody else or as much as the composer. And if somebody comes to me with just a new album and says, okay, mix my song, I still find it difficult to just get into it and start digging away and start mixing. I need to talk to that person. I need to figure out what kind of music they like, what do they listen to, where do they want to take this song, because I can take it any different way. What kind of stylistically thing they want to do with it, what is their vision with this song, what are their references for that song. So I need a lot more information from that person rather than just a file. I don't want just a session file, man. I need more information from that person. Only then can I do a better job.
You're not comfortable if you wouldn't be that comfortable if somebody just emailed his tracks to you and emailed.
See, you can't fight technology, boss. You have to embrace it and you have to kind of take it in your stride. This is the working modus operandi right now with most people, that they just want to email you files and say, okay, here is my song, and you kind of mix it and send it back to me. Or people say master it and send it back to me, whatever. Even then, I would still go to the extent of wanting to know more about that person and what they want to do with that song. Even if it's through the email, I would still like some more information. And normally I start with saying, what are your references when you're hearing this mix or when you composed it, what were you thinking? Like, did you think of that particular song? Or did you think end result of your song is going to be like which other song that you have in your mind? What are the kind of music you listen to?
Since
where is it going?
Yeah, since you're working with A.R. Rahman so much, I'm sure you get people calling you, other composers calling you saying, oh, you mixed so-and-so song for him. Just do a similar job for us because that became a hit song.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find such inquiries?
Yes, sometimes that does happen. To the extent I would put it on record and say that I think earlier eMagic, who was the owner of Logic and now Apple, I think owe a lot to A.R. Rahman for the sale of Logic software in India.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of composers felt that if they used Logic, which A.R. Rahman was using, they might start composing like him. Yeah, obviously it doesn't happen that way. So similarly, when people come to you saying, I want a mix like what you did with Vishal Bhardwaj, or I want a mix which you did for A.R. Rahman, and you just give me the same mix. My answer to that is that, it's just not possible, man. I mean, you need to compose like that person. You need to have a song like that. Before texturally, sonically, I can give you that output. I cannot transplant a template from him to yours. That would be like no brainer.
Yeah.
I mean, why do that? I mean, you just take that template, put it here. It's not going to work.
Correct.
So each song has its own genesis. Each song has its own life. Each song has its own outcome. Nobody can guarantee that. I mean, today's day and age, if I had to give you an analogy, if somebody was to compose or take a template of Kolavari D and put it on something else and hoping it will have the same million, thousand, whatever hits, I don't think that's going to be possible, man. For that matter, I don't think Anirudh and his team, even if they created another Kolavari E, would be as popular as Kolavari D, or maybe more, but it won't be the same, is what I'm saying. And if people are expecting it to be the same, I think they are just shooting into the dark, man. They need to wake up.
Right.
Seriously.
Right. Whenever you mix a song, do you have the composer sitting with you, or does he or she come to you after it's mixed or during the project? Or how does this work for you?
For me, I think right now I'm in a nice space where people don't look over my shoulder anymore, which is really a nice, comfortable place to be in. But I leave it up to the composer. Though personally, I would prefer to actually do my thing after I've got all this input, to bring in my creative inputs into the song, and then have the composer come and react to it. Because if they're sitting here all day, they're going to lose a sense of perspective. Because I'm doing very micro, small things, and that's what they don't need to hear. I mean, small things I'm doing which will take up maybe a few hours, and by the time I finish 10 of those small things, it's like another few hours gone. And he just sitting there, or she just sitting there chewing their nails or having tea or coffee and wondering, where the hell is the song going. But they're not. I would like them to come and just get hit by the overall picture of the song and then react to that, rather than getting into the nitty-gritties, because I think that's been done and that's a job of somebody else. You just need to have an overall picture in mind. So I would prefer the producer of the album or the composer come at a later stage after I've done with some kind of work on it, in my opinion, and then react as a holistic picture, much better. And I'm glad they give me that space most of the time, which is great. Even with AR, he doesn't sit on your shoulder and looking over it. He just says, "Here is the song. This is what I've done. Where can you take it from here?" And then you kind of build. It's like a building block, and I think that's the kind of thing you have to look into it like that. You just like a pyramid. You just kind of have the base thing, and then you kind of come and do something on it. He comes. He says, "Okay, that's great what you did. I like what you just did to my song, and but this part maybe is not working. So let's take that out and add this in, and let's see where it goes." So you say, "Okay, just give me time. I'll fix this one," and we go and build another block on top till you come to the apex where both of you feel, "Yes, this is it. Let's print it." And I think that's the best analogy I can give you for trying to get into the mix with the composer.
Right. You travel a lot for shows also,
Right.
across the world, and with the circle that you are in, you've met up with guys like Hans Zimmer
Mm-hmm.
and his engineers and other engineers like Alan Meyerson, etc. Do you all share notes in terms of how things work there and here?
Surprisingly, most people in this line are quite nice and humble and willing to share. It's not that they are a closed book. I remember 2 years back when we were traveling with AR for his Jeho tour in the US. We were also doing some work for him at the remote control where Hans Zimmer has his outlet. I mean, he's given that space out to other people, and it's like a very family thing, And in the afternoon there's lunch, and Hans and his entire people, a lot of people who are hired the studios downstairs, and everybody just comes up for lunch, and they talk music and they talk everything else about rock and roll, So it's a great vibe which he's put up there. And one of the things was bumping into Alan Meyerson, his scoring engineer. And when we met, because his and AR's room was just across the corridor, and we would just bump into each other very often, so I introduced myself, and he was really sweet and he was really nice. He came across and looked into some of our sessions, and I and Chetan, AR's arranger, we asked him a few questions, and he was absolutely forthcoming. He said, "Oh, this is how I did this one, and I'll tell you a little secret. I use this plugin. Come on, I'll show you." And not only that, he actually walked into our room, and when the session was open, he put in a plugin and see, this is what I do, and this is the magic number which he shared with us that day when he was doing the seminar. For him, 42 is the magic number, and so is 120 in terms of milliseconds of early reflections. So he shared it openly. I mean, he didn't hold anything back. And to this day, I still use some of his suggestions. And I actually wrote back an email to him saying thanks. I'm still using those things. And I told him this time as well, and he was smiling. He says, "I'm glad it works for you." So they have been very forthcoming. Jeff Foster from Airlindust in London, where a lot of recordings also happen. And he was on the Lord of the Rings album for AR. He was mixing it in 5.1 DVD. People like that, again, you just sat around, you talked, you shared things. And I think you come to a point where you don't have to, ask very deep questions or very elemental questions like, how did you do this EQ? That would be very strange. Or like somebody asking Mr. Bruce Sweden in one of the seminars I was at, saying, "What snare mic did you use for Beat It?" I mean, how's that going to help? I don't know. But you just ask very, interesting things like, how did you manage to hold that sub-bass element in the Dark Knight mix? I mean, it's huge, but he did not let it spill over. He just contained it just right. That's what you're interested to find out. How did he manage to do that? And he shared it with us. This is what I do. This is what I did. So those are the interesting things, one needs to find out. How does he manage to still have a score which is so full and big in a film mix? And how does he work so fast? I mean, he says, 10:01, I start my record button, and the 10 o'clock is the session. And it costs $100,000 to actually have 3 hours the orchestra. So the pressure is huge. So the idea is, okay, how do you manage that? How do you make sure that you start on time and you've got everything lined up already? Of course, that's his experience as well. But still, he shares small things with you which you catch. I was with Stephen Fitzmaurice, who mixed Omkara in London, and again we shared. He was showing me and he asked me, I remember in one of the title songs for Omkara, when the duff is being played, he asked me, what instrument is this? And I said, this is a huge skin instrument which is played by hands, and sometimes it's bigger, like a nagara, you can play it by sticks, but the essence is the same. He says, oh, it's got a lot of low end. I said, yes, it does. And actually, if you can enhance it, it will be great for the film. So, since I was working on the film sound design, so I said, if you give it to me for the film, it will be great, I said, oh, okay. See, if you put it through this, and if you put it through this, and you see, if you just turn this knob at 50 hertz, and whoa, that sounds great, So, there is another engineer who's done fantastic amount of work, and he's just sharing it with another engineer, and he asked me, do you know this newest Pro Tools version? I said, yeah. I said, okay, I don't know much about it, so just help me with some of the shortcuts and stuff like that. It was not an issue at all. We just shared like two people who would do the same job, and I think that's the hallmark of a good sound engineer, that they are secure in what they do. They're not insecure that somebody's going to come and take their job or something like that. We are doing what we are doing, they are doing what they are doing, and it's still great to learn from both across. Robert Scoville, who comes for the venue seminar and live concert thing, he sent me, I asked him, and he sent me a file of the Tom Petty show file he sent me. I said, I just want to study it, seeing how you do it. He said, yeah, sure. You see, he mailed me that file. I put it in the editor, I saw what he was doing, how he was routing things, and you learn interesting tidbits just from that, how he's managing to do things. So up till now, I have had a fantastic relationship with most of these people. With Sridhar as well, when we worked together, we overlapped in so many areas that it was difficult to tell actually who had mixed what after a point. And I think AR recognized that we both shared a very interesting way of working, which was very similar. Aesthetically, technically, creatively, we were very similar in our way of work. So I think he saw that and he thought, well, let's put these two together, and maybe something interesting will emerge out of it, as well as being able to take on the workload together. And I think it worked whenever we did work together, whether for his live concerts and his studio recordings. I don't know if anybody else who has two live front of house engineers.
Oh, yeah.
But AR did, and it worked smoothly without a hitch at all points of time whenever I worked with him. And we divided our roles, we fixed out what it was, and it was still fluid. It was not fixed that you only do this and I only do this. We would cross over or overlap depending on what needed to be addressed at that point of time. And similarly in the studio, I mean, he would tell me, I've done this, mix this song, but just have a listen to it, and I would listen and say, maybe it just needs a little bit on the bass. Yeah, okay, fix it. And I would fix it, he'd come back later and say, yeah, I think it sounds good. So there was never an issue of why did you mess with my song or why did you do this. There was nothing of that. And he was equally free with whatever I had mixed, and he would come and either say it was okay or say, I think maybe AR would like a little bit more of this, so let's add that and keep it ready for him. And he, took me through the baby steps of how AR works and, how things work with him. So I'm grateful to him for, giving me that
Input.
giving me that input to kind of work with an artist who he'd worked with for so many years.
Right.
And allowing me to kind of be a part of that experience of working with Rahman. So thanks to him.